We have no choice.
Night of the Seven Kingdoms video.
Must be held at dawn. You must find 6 other
Night
knights.
of the Seven Kingdoms video.
But I have
Night of the Seven Kingdoms video.
A Night of the Seven Kingdoms episode 4 came out, I don't know, maybe yesterday, I'm not quite sure. Why did nobody tell me? You're all happy to continue writing Sir Arlen-related puns in the comment sections, or Alice Three Fingers, but nobody warned me episode 4 would be out early. Are there no true knights among you? Okay, I watched the episode just now, and I love this episode again. We're really starting to see the seeds of everything coming together. I've already talked at length about Florian the Fool, and honour and foolishness going hand in hand, and it's really nice to see I was proven correct about that this episode. There's a few things like that where I've discussed them in past, how they're building up in the season, and it's nice to see them really beginning to blossom here. A lot of the themes really coming to a head and being perfectly explored alongside this very ominous build to what will be a climactic episode 5. As ever, my one big complaint about this show is getting to the end and having to see the credits roll and me just sitting there wishing for more. It was getting so good, you know? I can't be too mad, really. I think this show is very, very well paced. I think this is a sensible place for the episode to end, but I'm just... it makes me so impatient. Today, though, we're going to focus this video on something of a twist this episode. Something that took me by surprise in a way I really, really love and I think perfectly sums up what's so great about this show. I think there's a lot we can say here, so if you're ready for that, then you know what we must start with here. It's a cool train. Okay, firstly there is the obvious twist this episode, which is great, but isn't the point I'm thinking of. However, we might as well discuss it for a moment anyway because it's great. The twist where you think Sir Stefan is going to fight with Dunk and will assemble a team of Avengers for him, only to suddenly learn no, he is fighting with the Targaryens and that pretending to side with Dunk and promising to find him allies was just a trick designed to stop Dunk finding his own. Which is both kind of a bizarre twist when you think about it, but also really, really great. It's bizarre in the sense I have to then imagine Arion or Maker or someone sidling over to Sir Stefan's tent and going, "You're friends with Sir Duncan, right? He trusts you, yes?" I mean, they may vaguely know that Dunk is friends with Raymond, I suppose. But yes, Sir Stefan, why don't you trick Sir Duncan so he can't fight this trial and is immediately declared the loser, and in return we will grant you a lordship? I don't think there's anything logically to disbelieve about that conversation. It just feels a bit bizarre in my head. Until you realise it perfectly sums up the Targaryens here. Arion does not want to fight a trial by combat, so he instead demands a trial by 7. Apparently so he can fight for Daeron's honour as well, but it now seems he just doesn't want to fight 1 by 1. Dunk already beat the hell out of him once, he's a big lad, I don't blame Arion. And so, likewise, Arion doesn't want to fight the trial by 7 either. Even with 6 other people around him, he doesn't want this to go ahead. He wants to make sure Dunk is effectively disqualified. And on the one hand, yeah, that suggests Arion is a bit afraid. He may be. He's not as brave a dragon as he pretends to be. Therefore, rig the fight. We've already seen fight rigging be a plot point twice this season. It's nice that foreshadowing kind of builds to something here. But then on the other hand, House Targaryen needs to look mighty and above mere mortal men. The problem here is not just that the Targaryens would need to win the fight to prove that, it's that they'd need to absolutely trounce them, make it look like a cakewalk, completely batter Dunk and his team. Otherwise, you know, even if they do still win, they might be bloodied and it might be proven a close enough contest that the Targaryens are then indeed mortal, we get to see. They can be tested. They can be fought against without it being a complete stupid idea. And at the worst, if one of them dies, that makes it look like the gods are now against the royal house here. That would be catastrophic. And so when you're already a disliked house waning in its power, that would not be a good look. To have this fight happen with any outcome other than you completely battering your opponent would be a problem, I think. So both demanding the fight as though you're totally up for it, you're totally ready to trounce Duncan, making that point very publicly, but then also making sure behind the scenes the fight can't go ahead is probably quite a smart move they can make here. It's like that thing when you're getting all up in someone's face, talking up fighting them because you know your friends are going to hold you back and you won't actually have to follow in on it. Which, by the way, is also what makes Aerion's behaviour in episode 3 such brilliant foreshadowing here. There he also cheats to make sure he doesn't truly have to go through with the fight and risk being shown up. And there too, it put Baelor in a very precarious position about what he should do. There, Baelor sided with Sir Humphrey over Aerion because whilst it may make his house look faintly weaker, it is also the right thing to do morally and the more diplomatic thing to do politically. And then this episode, what happens? Baelor, again, sort of works against the interests of his own house. He's the one who hints to Dunk he should demand a trial by combat. And then he's the one who shows up as the 7th Knight, which is a really, really cool moment. Perfect moment to finally give us that sweet, sweet Raman Djawadi music, because this is what honour means. This is the answer to Sir Duncan asking if there are any true knights among you. Baelor shows true honour. Or does he? I'd be curious to know what you all think about this, because on the other hand, what he's showing us is that he has a much more nuanced understanding of power than Aerion has. Aerion, who previously attacked a puppeteer for a tale in which a dragon died. Aerion, who argued this was an affront to Targaryen power, an incitement to revolt, hinted to the people that the dragon can be beaten and should be fought. Like, yes, technically, I suppose you have a point, Aerion, but asserting power and authority is never as simple as just throwing your weight around screaming at anyone who defies it. You know, maybe that worked when you had dragons, but you don't have dragons now. Baelor is aware of that. Leadership is also about diplomacy. It's also about inspiring loyalty, making people want to follow you, or at the very least, seeming tolerable enough that it's better to put up with you than do anything about it. That's kind of a really fun irony we get here, that Aerion attacks Tanzel because he didn't want people to see the dragon as something that can be beaten, and in doing that has now resulted in a situation where people might literally get to see that the dragon can be beaten. Do you think Baelor does what he does because it's honourable, or do you think, whilst it appears he's undermining House Targaryen on the surface, this is a political move he deems the smartest one to protect the dragon in the more long term? He, as the heir to the throne especially, to be seen as a good and just person, and the importance of what that might mean. I mean, it's not a perfect move, I think there's a cost either way, but maybe to Baelor this is the best move available, which, yes, I do think there would be a cost even if Dunk hadn't gotten the fighters and it had been an automatic loser, and maybe even if he hadn't had the trial by combat, maybe if it had just been an ordinary trial and he'd been declared bad and either had his hands chopped off or executed or whatever, that still has a bit of a cost, because Duncan is certainly a fan favourite here. He's the guy who defended the innocent, and he is against the obvious villain, the guy who the people all threw stones at last time. Would executing Duncan really be a moment to assert how strong and authoritative House Targaryen is, or would it be a moment to assert how unjust and cruel they are, you know? Oh, and the third point, I'm actually really glad Sir Stefan doesn't fight with Dunk, because what are his motives, or what would his motives be if he had fought with Sir Duncan? It's certainly not care for Dunk, we've never seen any of that, and it's not, I don't think, care for knightly oaths. It would have been the whole tirade Raymond gave last episode that he hinted Stefan's feelings to, this hatred for the Targaryens. Stefan barely knows Dunk. Fighting with him would have nothing to do with Dunk and everything to do with undermining the Targaryens, which is the very thing Dunk is not about here. Dunk has had no direct intention to oppose the Targaryens. There is nothing political behind his actions at all. It is all about honour and defending the innocent, and in a just world, basic morality shouldn't be up for political debate. But Raymond, whilst he may hate the Targaryens, also very much likes Dunk, and that is his bigger motive for fighting. So Raymond being the one who sides with Dunk just is more narratively satisfying, I think. And then the fourth point, of course, this kind of sums up the very problem with knights. Too many people will too readily forgo what they believe in for the sake of personal gain. Stefan has done what appears to be the pragmatic thing in terms of personal benefits, not the right thing. It highlights for many their honour is negotiable. He is choosing to side with the people he hates. He is allowing himself to be used as a political pawn here, just because it feels like a benefit to him. Oh, and can I say this quickly while I remember? I released a big psychological character analysis on Theon Greyjoy from the A Song of Ice and Fire books a few days ago. I know this is a video a ton of you asked me to make. I know this is a video a lot of you will really enjoy, but I also know YouTube is not good at alerting people, so if you're interested, please check that out. It's a video I'm really proud of. Yeah, this episode actually made me think a little bit more about honor there, because it's not always strictly about being good, or at least not being bad. I mean, I don't think Daeron is a bad person. I mean, I haven't read the book. I'm waiting until after this season before I do so I can judge this season on its own merits. But he doesn't seem a bad person so far, just plagued by dragon dreams and very troubled. He seems a amiable enough fellow. However, he is not an honourable man. He lies that Dunk stole Egg to save himself, and not even really because he doesn't want to fight in the lists, because he lies that Dunk stole Egg to save himself a hiding effect. Maybe this isn't the greatest example, because for all I know, Daeron had no idea where Egg disappeared to for 4 days. Maybe Egg explained nothing to him, just suddenly up and vanished, and that would mean Daeron noticed his little brother had completely disappeared and did not care at all. He was totally unfazed. If that's the case, it brings my example into question here, but it nonetheless reminds me, so many people in the world are good, ordinary people, consider themselves good people. I think most of us consider ourselves to be kind and caring, but do we all stand up and do the right thing when it poses personal risk to ourselves? Are we all willing to? What if it goes against our own benefits? Often we're more inclined to do the Daeron thing, or the Stefan thing, keeping our heads down, or dealing with the devil, deciding it's not our business, than we are to do the Dunk thing. In a world where there's so much to fight for, I think honour matters. Yeah. So basically this twist is a great twist. Like I said of episode 3's twist, it's not the most surprising or shocking, you don't get the real big oh my god moment when it happens, but not all types of twists should be shocking. This is a twist that packs a heavy thematic punch and really ties everything together, ties together a lot of what has been building in past episodes. It's really, really good, but it's not the point of this video.
Has courage deserted the noble houses of
World Anvil!
I will not believe it is so!
World Anvil! Yep, they are sponsoring this video. World Anvil is an online tool for game masters, for writers, for tabletop RPG players and world builders. An online tool for designing worlds, creating characters, chronicling history, planning and managing campaigns from a plethora of different games. My best friend uses it for our D&D campaign, I use it for planning my novel. Far better and easier than the scraps of random A4 paper stuffed into a drawer that used to constitute my creative process. Not only can I keep everything in one place where I can easily edit anything I want to, but I can create timelines, hyperlinks branching off to specific characters or articles, family trees, a billion other things. You can even link them all to maps, like here's this basic map I made years ago. If I click on the character Tess, it sends me straight to her page where everything is redacted, and that's like the most basic thing you can do with your maps. There's other creators whose world building looks so much nicer than mine. There's a whole community network on World Anvil if that's your thing. There's so many different cool features for everything you may possibly need. In general, there's been lots of great updates recently, making the interface even simpler and smoother than it already was. World Anvil is great. I am genuinely passionate. I hope you can hear that. And if you desire, if you crave, if you call to the heavens for a 51% discount, then use the code TREE, or click the link in the description or the pinned comment. And if you just want to try out the free version, then go for it. There's no time limit. Test it out for as long as you want. World Anvil. The twist I really enjoy is actually Dunk and Egg at the beginning of this episode, and this too will seem like a very minor twist. You may even feel it's not a twist at all, that I've led you on by calling it that, but it was one for me. Episode 3 ended with strong emphasis on the divide between Dunk and Egg. We saw Dunk looking hurt at the realization Egg is a Targaryen. You expect conflict about this. You expect the two to be divided in episode 4. You expect that to be quite a big plot point, or at least you would if this were any other show, because that is of course not what happens, and it not happening is the most natural thing in the world here. Dunk is indeed very angry and hurt and feels betrayed, but conflict about that? Nah. This is such a beautifully wholesome, maturely behaved scene in a way that reminds me how immature most characters often behave in stories for the sake of conflict. Normally these sort of differences get blown into something massive. Normally a character like Egg would be saying sorry here, and Dunk would be like, I don't want to hear it, and he would tell him to get out of his cell, and it would only be at the end of the episode, or maybe even later when they first start to repair things. But not here. No, the second Dunk sees Egg has tears in his eyes, he begins to soften. And though he makes one more roar of frustration and somewhat scolds Egg for his deceit, he then totally lets it drop. He realizes Egg wasn't just treating Dunk like some donkey, some empty-headed tool he can use to play out the fantasy of being a squire. That Aegon was just being this superior lord who treats the lowborn like they're peasants, like they're nothing. Dunk instead realizes that Egg is very earnest in his care for Dunk, and I talked about last episode all about Egg's deeper motivations as to why he goes with Dunk. Yeah, Dunk realizes that almost immediately here about Egg and decides to let his frustration drop. Decides not to bear a grudge. Decides Egg needs kindness. He is a young boy here. Dunk seeks to repair and to protect him.
He's a good boy. Good squire. And he meant no harm.
Why is this kind of thing so rare in stories? I mean, really, we all knew they'd still have a great bond. I'm not going to pretend I was expecting a massive fallout here, but it's still so very refreshing compared to most TV and film out there. This is honour too. Putting what is right and kind ahead of your own personal frustrations. It's just a really, really beautiful moment that reminds you exactly why Egg cares for him, why Lyonel and Raymond and even Baelor are happy to fight for him too. And I think establishing that point early in this episode makes them choosing to fight for Dunk so much more fulfilling. He is not just honourable, but also a good man. As we've already pointed out, those two are connected, but not quite the same thing. When I talked last episode about the Overton window, about the more dishonourable things each knight or lord of royalty can get away with doing, the more acceptable and frequent it becomes for others to also get away with that. Criminality and injustice become normalised when nobody stands up to it. However, the reverse is also true. Goodness and honour can inspire those around you. Not only does Dunk inspire his fellow knights, but all of them get to set an example that may be remembered. Already people remember Sir Duncan, where Sir Stefan's supposed friends do not.
The fuck is this Stevron?
And it's not just a highborn. Tanzel will obviously remember Duncan, and the smith here charges him only a copper. You know, when the dragon of the world may seem unconquerable and unending, all it takes is one good man to set the right example, to remind you that no power in the world is absolute and no injustice need be beyond repercussions. For that, I find this such a hopeful story. I also love the episode takes that kind of fart joke it made in episode 1 and now mocks it as incredibly pathetic. I think that's quite a fun moment. And I also really like how very weird it is seeing Egg walk so stiffly with his hands behind his back. It just feels wrong to me somehow. You know, this isn't Egg. This feels so much less the real Egg, the real person, than the boy we've come to know, despite that boy having been acting and deceiving the whole time. As I've said before, how the acts and roles we put on need not be falsity. Sometimes they are more truthful underneath than the supposed real version. I really like that irony here. So yeah, please comment your thoughts, good or bad, but do not spoil anything in the comments. Please put a spoiler tag in your comments if you are going to discuss something, because unfortunately someone last video did spoil one thing that will happen during this trial, and I am gutted to know that now. Otherwise, like the video, subscribe, maybe even support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee. Please check out my other videos, especially the 2.5 hour in-depth psychological character analysis of Theon Greyjoy. I'm sure you all have 2.5 hours to spare in your totally not busy lives. But otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Flying Spider, Luke Hoare, Michael Gallagher, Ben Marie, Thafy, Chad Bramwell and Joshua C. Follier. Thank you.